great deal of respect for Tom Mulcair. I think he's a great national leader, but my job is going to be to focus on being the Premier of Alberta.
That's Alberta's new Premier doing a very delicate dance in her first press conference. As you saw there, the federal NDP literally burst into song after Rachel Notley's historic electronic win. It was more subdued atmosphere across the hall, apparently. Justice Minister Peter MacKay compared the Conservative caucus room to a morgue, and he quoted an unnamed colleague who dubbed the province Albertistan. Plenty to talk about there. Let's start round 2 of the Sunday Scrum. Let's go to Albertistan, where David Gray is. That was such a strange comment. Okay, you know what I don't think, given what Rachel Notley had to say about Tom Mulcair, I don't know whether she plays guitar, but I don't see her picking up her guitar and singing some songs with the leader of the opposition. What do you think that was all about?
Well, please, could we have a moratorium on the guitars in caucus, first of all? Look, the reaction in Alberta has been interesting to the Albertistan quit. Like most Albertans, one of the first things I did was I ordered the T-shirt. You can actually get one now that says Republic of Albertistan, and it's got a flag on it made out of oil droplets. It was a quip. It was in keeping with Peter MacKay. It's not the first time he's done something like this. And it's been great comedy fodder in Alberta the last few days. People have had a good laugh over it. I wouldn't read much more into it than that. They've been calling Calgary Petrograd and Edmonton Notleyevsky, so that's where we are right now on the Albertistan joke. But I don't even want to go further down that road because it's been a Twitter hashtag for I don't know how long. It does speak to fear of change in Alberta now that the new Democrats are in. But people have to really take a close look at what this Notley government is. This isn't your dad's NDP, as much as they're getting excited in Ottawa. It's not the Ottawa NDP either. This is Rachel Notley, who grew up in this province, whose dad was a heroic figure in this province amongst many people. What really has happened in Alberta, if you look at their policies, and from everything she's saying so far, is that we've thrown out a progressive Conservative party and we brought in a conservative Progressive party. That seems to be where we are right now.
Glenn, can we unload that a little bit? I mean, I think we all accept what David's saying, that this isn't your dad's NDP, but just how different is the federal NDP from Notley's NDP in Alberta?
Well, on policy issues, they're going to be, the federal NDP, first of all, is a lot more progressive on environmental issues, and they don't have to have, they don't have the same tension that she faces in her job dealing with her province's largest industry. I'm interested in to see how this plays out federally and the response. And I mean, I think that Peter MacKay was kind of whistling through the graveyard there, and I take him at his word that it was a very morose scene there, because this is a little bit terrifying for federal Conservatives, the notion that people in their base can consider voting for a new Democrat Party. Now, I don't think that absolutely translates into a resurgence or a rise of the NDP federally in the province. I think the situation in Alberta was much more of a case of, let's throw these guys out, and we feel comfortable with the alternative that's being presented here. And you don't see that kind of sentiment being expressed.
David, what do you think about that? Do you think, I mean, maybe in the Edmonton area, is this just a question of, the NDP could pick up a few seats federally, or could this be an orange wave in October on the federal scene as well?
I think it's a wait and see. It all depends exactly how Notley and this new government performs over the next year. Right now, of course, we're still in the honeymoon period. But to Glenn's point, I think he's right. If you're a federal Conservative, you've got to feel a little bit threatened right now, especially if you came from Alberta. It's like you're a crusader who's gone off to fight the Crusades in Ottawa, and you look back at your castle in Tuscany, which is actually a neighborhood in Calgary, and you see that the castle's burning, and you're wondering what's going on. Obviously, it took a lot of people in the federal caucus by surprise amongst the government side. Who knows what can happen from here on in? We've given up prognosticating in Alberta. Here in NDP Alberta. I don't know how this is going to play out in the federal scene, but it's really interesting to watch.
It certainly is. And you know what else?
Really quick. I just want to say one thing. I want to say one thing. I just wanted to say, I don't think the NDP thinks they're going to. This means they're going to win all of Alberta, but they already have benefited from the momentum. There are people calling them and say, "We want to work for you. We want to do this. We want to do that." And even MPs in Quebec will tell you that this will say to voters in Quebec, "Oh, other people like the NDP too. Let's vote for them again." And if it does just that, that's good for them.
All right, let's move on to the press gallery dinner last night. Glenn, Rosie, thank you for making it in this morning. First, though, Rosie, before we get, I know it was generally a funny affair, but before we get to that, there was a strange moment with the Green Party leader, Elizabeth May, right?
Yeah, and I flagged it to everybody because it was the weird moment of the night, and there sometimes is one, and it's also the moment where the mood sort of just went. I don't, it's hard to do speeches at these events. I've had to do them myself. It's a really tough room. You have to sort of make fun of yourself and not get too serious, and I don't know that that's what happened with Elizabeth May.
Okay, why don't we play the clip and then we can talk a little bit out of it. So here it is. Here's the moment Rosie's talking about.
Omar Khadr, you got more class than the whole cabinet. Thank you.
All right. Glenn, that was Lisa Raitt, kind of. Well, what's going on there?
Well, she gave a speech that was a very aggressive partisan speech in denouncing the government and its treatment of Omar Khadr. And Lisa Raitt, a Conservative cabinet minister, a transport minister, is basically shooing her off the stage because at that point it had gone on so long and had become so uncomfortable and completely contrary to the tone that these things are supposed to have. I mean, leaders come out at these dinners and they're supposed to be self-deprecating and funny, and they'll rib the other leaders, but it's all kind of in a good-humored way. She didn't do that. She came out and she started off doing that. I think at the beginning it was okay. It had a few funny quips, but it just went off the rails really quickly, and it did change the mood. I've talked to leaders about this speech before. It's a tradition that the party leaders and the Prime Minister, although he doesn't attend anymore, which is too bad because he's very funny. We've seen when he was as leader of the opposition, he came and gave speeches at these things, and he was hilarious. But this is the most terrifying speech for the leaders throughout their entire calendar year. It's just coming out and having to be funny in front of journalists is really difficult. Tom Mulcair pulled it off really nicely with some help from Mark Critch, who did this little exchange with him where Critch was pretending to be Mulcair. Justin Trudeau's speech was okay. He got a few laughs. But then Liz May's one, just a real train wreck.
All right. Well, let's show another little funny moment. This is Rick Mercer poking some fun at the Prime Minister.
Stephen Harper couldn't make it tonight. He saw the word gallery on the invite and he thought that art was involved. Actually, he just got back from the Middle East and he had to return his costume to General Schwarzkopf. Lumpy dudes always look good in sandstone. Hides a lot of sins. Actually, the Prime Minister is going to have a quiet night tonight. He's at home tagging soldiers on Facebook.
Okay, all right. Was it generally a good night, Rosie, do you think?
Well, that just shows you there are people who are paid to do this kind of work, and then there are the rest of us. Although we didn't even pay him. He gave us all those jokes for free last night. He was fall down, fall off your chair funny. It was a good night, as Glenn says. It's a hard room. It's a tough crowd. The leaders did okay, with the exception, I think, of Elizabeth May, because I don't think that worked out very well. And it's one of those sort of schmoozy Ottawa, things where you try and talk to people. And
David?
All I can think of, Rosie, is you should all just go bowling next year. Because it honestly didn't sound like that much fun. I mean, the Stephen Harper wardrobe jokes, the wardrobe jokes peaked back when he wore the leather vest at the Stampede. It's old material, but it's inside Ottawa. I'm glad you had a nice night.
It was fun, and the other reason it was important to go is some of these people will probably not be back next year.
Right.
There's an election in the offing, right? So it was good to see them one last time.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, and again, glad that you showed up this morning. Glenn, it was lovely to have you with us. David as well.
We're here.
And Rosie, the CBC's Rosemary Barton. Thank you all very much.